This is TWiT.
All right, so we've got Oculus. This is another big event that's been happening this week. Oculus Connect has been underway in the Bay Area the past few days anyways. We finally got a look at the next big VR system, and joining us to chat about the standalone VR headset called Oculus Quest is Sam Machkovech, a familiar face from Ars Technica. Welcome back, Sam.
I was just on like 25 minutes ago, wasn't I? I was live on TWiT.tv. That's what I recall. But I am currently at Oculus Connect in San Jose, and what's kind of hilarious is right behind me is the new Oculus Quest headset in glass.
Oh.
Just kind of just sitting here as an extra unused unit in the press center.
It looks so sad in glass. Yeah. It wants to be on your face.
Where's the axe? Break glass in emergency.
Right. They give us all of those as swag when we leave the event. They give us access, yes.
So after a year of speculation on what the Oculus Santa Cruz hardware was, we heard about that last year at the Oculus Connect event, and then now this is kind of the fruits of that labor. This is it. Of course, it has a different name. What do you think? Was it worth the wait? Was it quite what you expected, or a little different?
Well, let's break down exactly what this is. $400 gets you a virtual reality kit that does not require a computer, does not require extra webcams, does not require wires. And it works in what's known as 6 degrees of freedom, meaning I can put this thing on and I can walk around an open space as if I had a more expensive HTC Vive. Comes with a couple of controllers so I can simulate my hands, comes with some buttons and triggers so I can pretend to pick up a tennis racket or a gun or anything like that. And while I have tested this before, those tests came in more limited rooms that looked fake. They had these weird fake rugs and fake things on the ceiling. This has been played out in more open rooms without any like furniture or any sort of fake room stuff, and what I would not consider ideal ways to play in a space like this, and it works. I've played Super Hot, which is a popular VR game. Mm-hmm. That was the most incredible thing. I finally got to crack that open today, and I was able to just run all the way around with no cords. I was able to dodge around Matrix style, pick up guns, attack things, dash from one side of the room to the other, and it just worked. And it has a Snapdragon 835 system on chip. Now that's what you would expect in a Pixel 2 or a Galaxy S8. So it's a cell phone part, but it's pretty high end and pretty recent to power that much 3D action inside of 72 frames a second going on in your face, and it feels really smooth. It's not the same as a Vive Pro hooked up to a $2,000 computer, but it's definitely better than Oculus Go and some of these more limited smartphone rigs. It works. It's fantastic.
What is the difference between Oculus Go and this Oculus Quest?
Yeah, Oculus Go is you sit down. You can't get up. You can't move around. It's known as 3 degrees of movement. You can turn your head, but as soon as you do shoulder-to-shoulder movement, it all breaks.
So it's Oculus Don't Go, really?
Yeah. Correct. Yeah, in fact, it's sort of, you wonder if they kind of wish they'd save the name, since you can actually go when you're using this thing. This one, you can run all the way around a room. In fact, I tested this out in a 4,000 square foot arena in which I was able to run and duck and hide behind cover, which actually appeared in my virtual world. And there's an article about that at Ars Technica, and it is bonkers. That sort of feature, that sort of a laser tag style VR arcade experience will come later, because this is coming in spring 2019, this hardware. And some of these greater, more ambitious things are coming later, but it worked. Just being able to run all the way around a giant room with no extra cameras or things attached to me was unbelievable.
But there's a difference here when you're talking about inside-out tracking, in the sense that obviously these cameras are mounted onto the visor itself, so it's seeing forward. It's being able to map the room that's in front of the person that's in this experience. But you have no awareness of anything behind you. Is that right?
Well, that's the idea, is that when you calibrate this, and we haven't seen the calibration, is that you will look all the way around. And we saw other people who work for Oculus kind of look all around a room and hold the wand out. It's the Oculus Touch controller. Mm-hmm. Apparently mapping it out and sort of saving that memory. Perhaps it's looking for certain things in the room that it can identify no matter when you spin around. But the little sensors inside of the headset have a very wide angle. They sort of jut out in this interesting bulbous way. So exactly how it'll work in a full room is something we didn't get to test with only 5 or 10 minutes at a time. But it was convincing in this limited state, and we can't wait to actually see how it works in a home. But it was way more convincing than we expected, especially after our limited demos of what had been known as Santa Cruz back last year.
Yeah. What about the games? You mentioned Superhot. Obviously, Superhot VR. Well, it's one of my favorites of the limited, full-scale VR games that I've played. That's definitely one that I probably spent the most time with. But that gives you a chance, if you are, and I assume you are, very familiar with Superhot VR on other systems, to directly compare it to the performance you got out of this. You mentioned it's a Snapdragon 835 processor, so it's a mobile processor. But would you say the experience is roughly the same, or were there visible differences?
I would say roughly the same. That demo, I think Superhot is an interesting case. If you've never seen it, it's very stylized, sort of this limited polygon kind of old school look, but very sharp, high contrast stuff. So it's not as detailed as a Gears of War or something like that. But what that meant was I was able to move quickly and go up to things and look for fine details as I got my face right up to them. And they all looked smooth. It was a lot of the same gameplay and same challenges where enemies would come up and they moved when I moved. This sort of weird Matrix-like slowdown thing. And that was really what was incredible. I think the main thing is that a 72 frames per second refresh on that was the only difference, which is slightly less smooth than what's known as the 90 frames a second standard on other headsets. But that just worked. Other games were brand new. We played a tennis demo in which one person had a larger living room and was able to run all the way back and forth in this living room to chase after balls. And I was in a more limited living room where I stood still and balls kind of magically warped to me. And that felt smooth. It made me think, oh man, if Wii Sports had actually been like this, maybe it would have been more fun than 5 hours. And then there was a third demo that was the worst, which was walking around a haunted zone. You had to use a joystick while walking around in real life. And I just kept my feet planted. That wasn't as fun. It didn't feel like I was in this sort of wireless world. It was just it didn't look very good, and it felt uncomfortable to switch between joystick and walking. It was disorienting, which means new games that do this wireless stuff are going to have to find some new design language, because being completely wireless, having that ability to just feel like a true Kung Fu VR master is going to require some new language. A guy told me that for the tennis demo, they have to set up whole new visual language to make sure people don't run and hurt themselves, because you can.
Yeah.
So were there any other announcements? Was the whole Oculus Connect just for Oculus Quest, or was there anything else that they talked about?
We got a lot of forward-looking statements about what is to come. Clearly, they are working on a new Rift. In fact, Zuckerberg came up and said, we're not announcing Rift 2, but we're working on it. And it was earlier this year at the F8 conference that we learned about some focal depth kind of tech that's going into that, some new aural sensing earpiece kind of stuff that will make sounds a little more realistic all around you. But there was no push to show any of that inside of the demo halls. There's some of the older computer Rift. There's definitely stuff for Oculus Go, because that's selling. In fact, John Carmack, one of the main guys at Oculus these days, talked this morning about the sales just wildly exceeding expectations for Oculus Go. And so talking about making apps for that, which is for sit down, but it's $200. People are using it. They're trying it out. They're getting into media apps with that. So it seems like there's definitely a development community interested in that media use case. But in terms of gaming, the stuff for Oculus Quest was so much more riveting. Once I played with that and then went back to a computer and a Rift, a wired Rift, I said, yeah, it's a little bit smoother, but I want to go back to that wireless stuff. I want to go back to running around the room and feeling like a superhero.
Yeah, you really do get a different sense when you're disconnected from wires entirely. It's all about immersion, right? And all of these levels, these ways of eliminating the hurdles that would keep you from being immersed, in an immersive environment. So that really seems effective.
And it's interesting because basically everyone is saying, oh, it's not powerful enough. I want some high end. But I'll tell you, they really seem to understand that there's a price point and there's a performance level that goes with that price point. And I think people are going to be able to design for this. There's been a language of we need to be ready for smartphone VR. So people have been making games that compromise, that come up with things that aren't super realistic. And man, just that sensation. I think this event is it's very developer centric. And I think a lot of devs are going to put this on and understand the potential of wireless and what sacrifices they have to make in 2018 to get there. And they're going to do it. And there will be cool games as a result. If they're anything like that Superhot demo, we're in for some really cool wireless stuff when this comes out in spring 2019.
Sweet. The bummer is we have to wait until spring 2019. Sam Machkovech, your work can be found on Ars Technica, and I don't know if you heard, Sam, but you and I are collaborating on the next season of Know How Gaming. That went up today.
That little thing. Oh, that was a fun episode. That was really good. And yeah, every Thursday, I believe, tune in to watch Jason and me fake like we are experts on gaming.
Well, I'm faking like I'm an expert. You're the actual expert.
Well, we know what we're talking about and really, really love it. And that's been really fun. So I can't wait for you guys to see all the fun that we had filming some of those. And we've got more coming, especially from between now and the year-end guide. Just keep it tuned to twit.tv, everybody. And obviously, arstechnica.com if you want to see more of our deep dive on Oculus Quest and everything that's been at Oculus Connect.
Yes, absolutely. Sam Machkovech, thank you so much, man. And we'll see you next week.
I gotta go grab my complimentary axe and bust that thing.
All right, cool. Videotape it if you would. That would be great. All right, take care, Sam.